Okay, Pat, tell us a little bit about.
Okay, I think that as a veteran and as joining the Navy, I was actually drafted. I was a young man. I had recently married. Um, had left college. Went to college for 2 years. Met somebody. Got married. Left college. Was working and got drafted. And didn't want to go to the Army, so I joined the Navy. You know, when I joined the Navy, I wanted to be medical, so I became a corpsman, not realizing that corpsmen were the Marines' medics. So after a year or so of corps school, and then field medical school with the Marines, and then a year in a hospital in Albany, Georgia, where my son was born, Will. 6 weeks after he was born, I was sent to Vietnam. And I was sent with a platoon, Marine platoon, 1st Platoon Fox Company, 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines, 4th Marines, 3rd Marine Division. Magnificent Bastards was our nickname. I had a lighter at that time, and just pretty proud to be with the Marines. We were on a patrol, and we were down into a valley in Vietnam, up near the I Corps division, up near ZMZ. And the platoon was walking down into a valley, and gunshots rang out. And when they did, I didn't realize at the time, but the point man, the man who leads the group down into the valley, was shot right through the head, cornered up. And I had to run up and see if I could help the man. Well, I couldn't, but I was right there beside him, right where he had been killed. And luckily, I wasn't wounded and wasn't hurt. I fired my pistol, found out what I could do and couldn't do, and then ran back up the hill. After that, we were in a very significant battle. Several people were killed, and then later, the other corpsman in my platoon was killed that same day. So it was a really, really bad time. But what we're talking about is how close do you feel to God in that kind of time, and even looking back later, how close do you feel to God? And I can't say that I did. I mean, sure, God could have protected me. He could have protected Danny, but he didn't. Or Danny was killed and I wasn't. But tough time. There are other tough times. And one thing that I know is that after my time in the Navy and during my Navy career, I was a hospital corpsman, and I went to nuclear medicine school and became a nuclear medicine technologist. And a lot of that involves starting an IV needle into somebody's vein, and then giving them radio tracers, radioisotopes, and then taking pictures. Well, lots of people have veins that are hard to find. They've been in hospitals, they've been sick for a long time. And many times, I have found that if I stop and the patient and I pray together, say a prayer, I can find that vein. Sometimes I still can't, but a lot of times I can. And it makes a difference. God is all around us. God is with us. But to listen, pray, and to study, read, but be open.
I was back before I went in submarine service. I was on destroyers, and we were off the coast of Norfolk, Virginia, in a convoy, and I had got off watch at midnight and went down and got in my rack, which was below decks on gun mount 51. And then as I would just lay down, and I then the radio, and I copy code a lot, Morse code, and I heard the dit-a-dit, and now sometimes the code would resonate through those pipes, but that was collision alarm. And something hit us between gun mount 51 and 52, and I jumped out of my rack, and the water was already up above my waist, was up about here. the guys were getting out. We started to go up the hatch into the mess hall, and damage control had dogged it down. It was locked. That's what the first thing you do, to get the thing airtight. So right then, we all wonder what we're going to do. So all of a sudden, it's about 5 o'clock in the morning. A light shined on the other side of the bucket, and what it was, the tanker that hit us was backing down when it hit us, so it actually pulled away from the ship. So that's how we got out. We swam out the side of that ship, and they picked us up on the fantail. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of amen to that, going in. That was one time I had really got scared. In fact, that scared me more than the years I spent on a submarine. As far back as I can remember, we didn't have a choice to go to church on Sunday morning. My mother laid our clothes out on Saturday night, and we knew we got up the next morning, it was eat breakfast and get ready, we're going to church. So that was my beginning, and it has followed me all the years of my life. I've got some. Other than that time on that shipwreck, I don't think I ever was scared a day in my life after that. And I spent 78 days on submarines at one time. We went down, I was on a nuclear boat, and we were down 78 days before we come back up. And it never bothered me a bit. Of course, ever since I'm old enough to pray on my own, I guess you might say, I say a minimum of one prayer a day. A minimum. And I pray all day long. If you feel like the good Lord is with you at all times, you're not going to be afraid. You're not going to be afraid.
One of the experience main experience that we had, that after a mission, we was landing, coming back home to the base, and we cracked up. Got to the end, got landed, and the plane kind of did that, and I called him Pappy, but my pilot. When he got to the end of the runway, he pulled the throttles back, and we spun around, and look, God was with us. Nobody was hurt. We had, I hollered at my gunner up in the turret. Was he all right? He said, yeah. I said, well, how about catch the bombardier? I got the pilot, and I got the emergency. I opened up my emergency window and got out, went up on the wing, because the wing was on the ground, and got him all right. Everything turned out right. I believe in the Lord, and everything worked fine. My experience in God was always, I've been always believing in God. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand the people, Megan, don't. They think that all they got to do is look up at the sky, and that's the Lord made that. Mm. All these trees, the birds, and the animals, and all. That's not handmade. I served my time, and I got out, and they wanted me to stay in, but I got out, and I'm happy to be here.
So I had a very life-changing event that happened back in 1997. I had just applied for a job down here at Charleston, and I was still at my civilian job in Sumter. And I had a bad work accident where I had a motor control center fall on me, and so I had a lot of major injuries, and they ended up having to medevac me up to Columbia, and they didn't think I was going to make it. So, of course, the whole family came in, everybody from work came in, and had it not been for our faith in God and the strength that we had as a family, I probably would not be here today. So it took everything that we had. I was in the hospital 11 days, but at no point, even through this horrific accident, did I ever feel that I was going to die, because I just had this calm wash over me that everything was going to be okay, because I do believe God meant for me to come down here and take the job that I had in the military down here because I was meant to be here for a purpose. And that's probably my most life-altering moment. When I was in actual ICU and they had put me in a coma to let some of the injuries start to heal. And it was a rough night and they weren't sure how well I was going to do. And she had asked, and she'll tell you the story, it always makes me cry. But she said, okay, God, I need a sign that she's going to be okay. And Mom said on either side of my head came two wings. And she knew that I was going to be okay. Things that used to upset me, like at a moment's notice, little things that used to aggravate me and just get me spun up, you look at life differently when you've had such a life-altering event. So I've learned to relax, take it as it comes, worry more about other people, cherish family more, cherish friends more, rely on faith. That was a huge event for me.
So during the last appointment, me and Laura started swapping Bible verses with each other, and just, I guess, things we were thinking and issues we were having. I mean, because I've been deployed for a year of our first 2 years together. So I left right after we got married. I think we were married for like 4 months, and then I left, and then I came back, and I was here for 4 months, and then I was gone again, and then he was born while I was gone. So we had a lot of issues, just with like communication and me not being able to help her, and so we just did like Bible verses, and I was reading my Bible the first time I was there, and then the second time I went there, I was more reading it's called The Daily Bread, and it's a military book they sent out. It's really small. They sent out like every month, and it tells you like something to read. And then it got to the point where it's where I would look at Bible verses that I remember reminded me of her and earn it.
Oh, there's been several times when I myself was in danger, and there's been times when the outcome was pretty well defined, and I felt that God's presence was with us. Probably the first time was during the Vietnam War, when we first was a flight engineer, and we started. They said, take the first division over there, and it was the first big thrust of us flying there all the time. And we went into a Benoit with a load of ammunition, with 30,000 pounds of ammunition in the airplane. They remote parked us right by a river, and we found out later that there'd been a boat, a Vietnamese boat, that was lobbing mortars into the base from the river. And myself, the crew, everything, we shut down the airplane, got off, and truck come out with a power unit and everything, and took the pilot and navigators. They went up to final flight plan and left me and the loadmaster alone at the airplane out at the very end of the runway. Nobody else around, and we were out smoking a cigarette. I smoked at that time. We were out smoking a cigarette, and an airplane dove toward the river and opened up firing machine gun at the boat. And that was a very place where you felt really in danger here, you know. And that's well, I felt that, you know, it was a fear, but I said, well, if it's meant to be, I think God knows it, and what'll happen will happen, you know. I had faith that he'd take us through it, you know, and that happened that time, and I had other occasions after that, after Vietnam was long done, that we got into some tight situations. And always, like I always said, you know, God is my co-pilot, and I think he was there. Yeah.
So basically, I kind of had this sense that I always wanted to serve my country, and I think that did come from God. I think that wanting to serve my country just started early on. My grandfather was in the Army Air Corps, and that kind of maybe led it a little bit. But when I got in and got called and activated, it was a very emotional time for family, friends, spouse at the time, and everyone worried about me going. And you know, I was pretty upset and all too. But the whole process of getting ready and seeing all these other people who were also putting their lives on the line and leaving their family, their friends, their children to go help fight for what they honestly believed in, I was able to go and felt comfortable and was able to do my job because I knew I was in God's hands. We had the giant voice, which would come on every time, and 99% of the time, the giant voice came on and said, "We are under indirect attack. Please, you know, take cover," whatever, but you're under indirect attack. There was one time that we were under direct attack, and we were eating at one of the mess halls, the Gag and Dragon, and there was a big explosion, and we're all looking at each other, and we were in our full Kevlar and everything, which was 27 extra pounds of gear, helmet, vest, everything, and the giant voice came on and said, "You are under direct attack, get to your bunker immediately." And of course everybody just scatters, and we get to our bunker, and I'm in there with 18, 19, 20-year-old men who are on the front line type with us in there, and they are fairly calm, and for whatever reason I was extremely calm, and there was an Air Force combat stress girl who was the only other one. My bunker was right behind my hut, and she was in there and she was losing me. And I was thinking, she's supposed to be our combat stress person and supposed to be keeping us calm, and here I had this calm over me. And I knew I was in his hands, and I wasn't worried.